It's the end of the world. Zombies are taking over. And where do you go? Well, I'm going to Disneyland, of course. Let's get into this. Welcome to Solitary RPG. So it's October, and this is the time of the year that I feel somewhat normal going shopping and putting a few human skulls and cauldrons in my shopping cart at Fry's, and no one looks at me weird when I'm checking out because, well, it's Halloween. And I wanted to do a horror game, and unfortunately, horror games aren't best played solo because it's sometimes hard to build up suspense and kind of get that thrill in the game. But Zombicide, on the other hand, is really more of a comedy board game than it is a serious board game. The one thing about Zombicide is it really leans into the parody of the characters they include in their games. Recently, they just released Eddie from Iron Maiden miniatures, which are perfect zombie miniatures for Zombicide. So they got the license from Iron Maiden, put those into the game. They do a lot of parody stuff in their games, which adds to more of the beer and pretzel side of the board game. Well, they did create an RPG for the game. I'll be upfront. This is not the greatest RPG in the world. It's going to require a lot of work. And that's kind of why I thought it might make a good video series to kind of show my process of taking this RPG and trying to turn it into some sort of a solo or maybe GMless RPG system. And I'm going to lean into it just as they do in Zombicide, the world of Zombicide, and make it a little bit fun. That's why I'm going to Disneyland because, I want a zombie Mickey and a zombie Goofy, and I want to shoot them. So I just want to have a little fun. I'm not going to take this game seriously at all. It's just going to be a blast. But I figured to start this video series out is I will treat it just like I start any kind of RPG out that I want to play solo. What are the steps I go through, and what do I do? And the first step, just like most RPGs, is you buy a rule book, you buy a setting book, and you just start reading it. And so let's do that. Like, this is the core rule book. I kind of want to talk about this last, but there are some supplemental pieces of material you can pick up for this game that would help with the game. So let's kind of go through what other materials are available for this game, and then we'll dive into some of my issues I'm having with the rules. The two supplements you can pick up for Zombicide Chronicles is Stories from the Outbreak and the Field Guide. Stories from the Outbreak really just adds more adventure sites for PCs to go into. So the core rulebook gives you a bunch of different adventure sites. This continues on with those adventure sites so that PCs can encounter new and exciting zombies and fight them in really cool, unique places. So, really like it. It's just giving you some more information to pull from. One thing you're going to notice in the supplements is they started including this pencil art, black and white, just pencil art, breaking away from the traditional color art. I don't know why they did that for the supplements, but I like it. Just gives you something new to look at, and not everything's so bright and colorful. And you could probably photocopy those off and use those for character profiles if you so desired. That pencil art's just really cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all this is. This is just new adventure sites and places for your characters to go. For a solo game, sometimes keeping track of time, kind of putting a little bit of pressure on your PCs to make better decisions for yourself as the GM and player, is having some sort of a time tracker saying you've got 1 hour to get from here to here and what takes place between that, to add a little bit of pressure and maybe add something to your story in case you get caught up in an encounter. Something happens, you have to take a rest, and you don't quite make it to your location. What's the consequence? So I'm going to see how this time tracker works. I read through it. It looks okay. But I'm going to see about adding it into my regular games. But yeah, so that's what Stories from the Outbreak is. It's just additional stories that you can add into your, if you're doing like a long campaign and you're just having your PCs go to a bunch of places. This book isn't really necessary, only if you're really serious about Zombicide and wanting to play more and more of it. But the field guide, on the other hand, this is a pretty important book to add to your collection if you're going to get into this series. So in this book, you're going to get 2 new archetypes, and you're going to get the cop and the sandwich chef. Again, Zombieland Chronicles is leaning, just like it does in Zombieland the board game, into some of the comedy side of zombies, not taking itself too seriously. And that's what I'm trying to do with this game, is just have some fun. That's why we're going to Disneyland. Kind of like Zombieland with Woody Harrelson and on his quest for Twinkies and going to the amusement park. So you got some new stuff that you can add to your game, new or NPCs that you can just pull right out of the book of people you run into or dogs. Pencil art again, which is just kind of cool, something different. Elvis impersonator, which would be a fun person to have in your game, especially if they can do a good Elvis impersonation, which I can't. And then you get more weapons. And this, I think, is really cool because the weapon list in the core rules is pretty limited. This is going to add to it a lot of new weapons that you can pull from, especially rifles and long range weaponry. So kind of good. And it just helps to have the rules for that stuff instead of making it up. Some vehicle rules if you want to drive around town. Just a lot of different information that you can use to supplement the core rules are in here. New charts to roll on for searching, and that's awesome because you want to be able to find stuff in this game. The whole idea in this is to find some of the crazy stuff and go out and just kill a bunch of zombies. This is a game where you are outnumbered by zombies, and you need to do everything you can to take them out. So if you give your PCs a rocket launcher, all right, it's going to give them a good shot if it works and take out a bunch of zombies, and that will just be epic and cool. So anyways, yeah, NPCs, new zombies to fight, all kinds of fun stuff, abominations, just stuff, NPC, army NPC, and law enforcement NPCs to add to your party. And what's cool in a game like this is you add NPCs in just so they get killed off and just keep playing the game. Rumors table. So this book just really has a lot of great information to pull from, a mission generator in case you want to create your own missions. So this one to me is more, I don't want to say it's necessary because nothing's necessary, but it does add a lot more to the core rules to supplement and create more stuff for you to have options for. Yeah, more options. We like more options. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the Game Master Starter Kit. I picked this up not knowing exactly if this would be something I would need or not, but everything for Zombicide Chronicles is relatively inexpensive. I think this was $20, so I picked it up. It's everything you thought it was in a GM starter kit. It is a GM screen done in landscape, and you just have a lot of your charts and tables, 3 panels, art on the back of the GM screen, 3 different panels, 3 different pieces of art. It's not continuous. I kind of would have rather have seen one continuous piece of art, but this is what we got. And it's your standard GM screen. It just has a bunch of charts and tables to roll on, easy, quick access. Is this something that you really need for solo play? No. Is it helpful? Yes. Because it has a lot of the important charts on it, so that way I don't have to flip through the book to find them, and I kind of like that. In addition to the GM screen, you get cardstock copies of all the archetypes from the core rulebook. This does not include the new archetypes in the field guide. These are just all the archetypes from the core rulebook. These are really cool because you can just photocopy these. You already have a character. I wouldn't write on these. These are like a heavy cardstock, and I would hate to ruin them by writing on them. But it has all your basic information filled out for this particular archetype, which is the kid with the BMX bike. He's a food delivery boy. His habits are freestyle BMX, and he's young and lanky. So they just give you all your basic information with your skills. They just don't give you weapons. You have no weapons, so you equip them, and you're good to go. So these would be fun if you were doing a one shot. Photocopy these, give them out to your character, your players. Have them equip them, and they can do the backstory on the back of it. There's nothing on the back of these, but they can go through the core rulebook and do the backstory on these characters and just get playing. This is just a simple way to get into the game. There's lots of them to choose from. This is really cool, especially for just a one-shot adventure or the convention adventure or something like that you're doing. But yeah. And then you also get these adrenaline dials. So adrenaline is one of the mechanics in the game that you keep track of, and it unlocks new skills as your adrenaline goes up. That tracker is also here. So this is just giving you dials if you want to keep something separate and not have anything on the actual character sheet. And if you own Zombicide, they come with these little like paper clips for keeping track of stuff on the cards for Zombicide. You can just pull those out and use those on the top of this. If that doesn't work for you and you don't want to use that, you got these dials to choose from. But this is all optional stuff, not necessary for the game. The GM screen is nice, but it is not necessary. You know, solo playing, we're used to creating our own charts, tables, and keeping track of information. You can make all this stuff up yourself if you wanted to, but it is something that's out there. Now we're going to take a look at the dice. This game does have really cool dice that you got 6 black dice, 6 white dice. Basically, this is a D6 dice pool game. So you have skills and attributes and equipment, things like that. You roll your dice with the Molotov, the little glass bottle with the explosion at the top. That's a success. Anything that comes up with a zombie head, those are obviously failures, but those could actually create more problems for you or zombies for you. So that's kind of how the dice work. But yeah, you build a dice pool. You're looking for 6s, and you're trying to avoid zombie heads. And those were, I am not roll. There's one, but that's how you generate successes. And they do have these cool dice, like little bullet shots into the numbers. But you can use regular D6s. Just remembering the 6 is success, 1 is a zombie head. And the last thing that they offer for Zombicide Chronicles are miniatures. This is a CMON game, cool mini or not, and they make some really nice miniatures. Zombicide has some really cool zombie miniatures in it, and they've taken all the core archetypes for the game and created a miniatures pack. This is the miniatures. They're really cool miniatures that I picked up, and the only reason I picked them up is I have Zombicide. I have the core box game, so I can just throw these right into the core box game. Unfortunately, the cards are all for 2nd edition Zombicide. I do not own 2nd edition Zombicide, and I don't plan to buy it. I don't think there's anything wrong with the 1st edition of Zombicide. I still play it every once in a while. It's a beer and pretzels game, doesn't take itself too seriously. But these cards are all for 2nd edition, which I do not own. But the miniatures can still be used for regular Zombicide as characters and different things like that. So, and it says right here, 2nd edition. So that is all the product that goes with Zombicide Chronicles. Core rulebook, 2 supplements. 1 is the field guide giving you a lot of options to the core rules. 2nd one is stories from the outbreak, adding to the campaign play of this game. You got the GM screen, really cool screen to add to your game, but not necessary. You also have all the character sheets that you can use, and you got those adrenaline dials. The dice, you know, I love dice. I always buy dice. If a game has dice for it, I'm probably going to pick them up. My goal is to fill a 55-gallon drum full of dice when I want to be buried with them or something. Anyway, so they're fine, but you can use regular D6s. And then you have some miniatures if you wish to have them on the board. I will start by saying the game does lean a little bit towards using Zombicide, using the maps, using the miniatures, using all that material from the core game, which CMON was smart for doing that because they can get maybe that role playing crowd to kind of venture into the board game side of things. Zombicide has a lot of expansions and a lot of material out for it, and it is a pretty extensive board game collection if you so desire to go down that rabbit hole. So, how would you get started taking this game and making it work for solo play? Obviously, the first thing you got to do is start reading the rules and understanding the rules and making sure that the rules work just in general. Like, you just want to get a good grasp of it. And what I want to do is kind of dive a little bit about some of the rules I found in this game that make it just a little bit harder to play just in general, let alone for solo play. So the first thing I do when I'm learning a new game is I just start reading the rules. I get a little notebook. I start taking notes while I'm reading, getting an understanding of how the game is designed, just the different concepts that they have in place. And then I'll just start my adventure. Then I'll just start playing. The one thing we already talked about were the dice. The dice pack has 2 different colors. You have your normal character dice. You got up to 6 of these. So if any of your character abilities and equipment push you over 6, then you add in other colored dice, and they're called those master dice. So if you're going to use your own dice, you want 2 different colors, because if you ever add in master dice to your dice pool, these are re-rollable if you get a zombie head. So that's like one of the mechanics you need to understand. It's obviously going to be all D6 rolls, so you're going to have a D6 and a D66 roll for charts. If you want, you can go to CMON Games and you can download a blank character sheet. So they provide you resources. Actually, the CMON website actually provides a lot of good resources and some different adventures if you just want to go over there and download those. Then you get into creating your survivors. You got all the archetypes, the advertisement for their game. And your archetypes just have predetermined abilities so that it just makes character creation a lot easier. So you got all your archetypes that you can choose from, gives you some basic information. But when you choose one of these archetypes, you're just getting core information. And then as you go on in your character, and you got a lot to choose from. So here you get like a step-by-step process for creating your characters, just going 1, 2, 3 to 9. And you just kind of follow these steps. So the first thing is your bio. So, name your character, their occupation, habits, their looks, some basic information. Then it gets into levels, just kind of explaining to you how your characters level up. Your skills, just talking about the skills you can get. Your favorite actions, which is something very unique in this game, of just having like your favorite things that you like to do. Your attributes and proficiencies, derived stats. This is your HP and your stress. Your gear. One thing about gear in this game is they, again, lean back into the board game, suggesting that you use the cards from the board game to put on your character sheet. That is why those character sheets had those white boxes at the bottom down here, because basically you have 3 spots for equipment: in your hand, at the ready, in your backpack. So basically that's where your weapons are kept. That's your encumbrance. But they recommend you use the cards from the game if you want. You don't have to. So that's basically character generation. And then we just get into this background stuff. So, when did you hear about the outbreak? And you got D66 charts you can roll on. Your first experience as a witness, your first zombicide, baptism by fire. This just gives you like a lot of charts to roll on to really just put some meaning behind your character. So character creation, super simple, super easy, not a lot to it, especially with all the pre-generated archetypes that you can pull from. Makes character creation simple and fun at the table. Zombicide is a beer and pretzels game. Don't take it seriously. Then we get into attributes and proficiency. This is just kind of breaking down all this. And abilities that are related to those different attributes and proficiencies. Then gets into stress, hit points, adrenaline. So now we get into playing the game. Chapter 3, how you take actions, how you create your dice pools, and what are successes and what are failures. And this is where it introduces the concept of the master dice that I was talking about, with the adding the second color so that you have a better understanding of what that means. You got dice pool modifiers, so when should you add dice, when should you subtract dice. Over here, it talks about quality rating. So if you get 1 success, it's just a success. If you get 2, it gets a little bit better. And if you get 3 or more successes, it's an outstanding success. And it's just kind of breaking that down for you. That is going to become really important when we start talking about combat. And during this reading of this chapter is when I started paying close attention to everything, started taking a lot of notes. And if you're going to play a game solo, this is what you're going to do. So combat. Combat is interesting in this game for 2 reasons. First, there's really no movement in this game. You're not moving so far. You're just kind of going through zones. And every time you go through a zone, you have encounters, a lot like the board game. You're just going through places. So there's really no movement. And that's one of the reasons why I created my Disneyland map on graph paper. So all I did was I just found some PNG files for Disneyland maps and put some graph paper in my printer and printed them off and cut them to size. Because I want to use the grid system on these maps to help me with movement from area to area and try to create those encounters in the different areas that we go into, kind of mirroring what takes place in the board game, because the board game is all gridded out like that. So that's how I created my maps, and we're going to go to Disneyland. But the way combat works, it's kind of bizarre. You have what's called an opening shot. So once you see encounters, doesn't matter how far away they are, you shoot at them with your opening shot, and then next turn they're in close combat range. Like they move so many squares or move so many spaces. It's just like you get opening shot, and then you go to combat round, close combat round. And depending on what actions you take, like evading or things like that, you're just stuck in hand-to-hand combat. It's pretty simple, and I don't like it, because if something is long range and you shoot at it, then next thing you know, they're up close. But you could open up your mind and imagine maybe zombies coming in from the sides or coming in from other locations, and now maybe you're not fighting the encounter that was in long range, but maybe some other zombies came up closer. But basically, you get 1 round of free combat for shooting at the zombies or throwing grenades or Molotov cocktails or things like that at them. Next round, you're in close combat. And it's simple, brutal, and straightforward. And then this breaks down all the combat stuff, your targeting priorities, like who are you hitting first, and their speed rating. But their speed rating has nothing to do with their movement. It's just their speed rating for target priority. That's it. A little confusing. I probably shouldn't have called it speed, because to me, speed represents movement. And I understand kind of that the fatties move slower than the dogs, but maybe it should have just been target priority. 1, 2, 3, 4. But whatever. They called it speed. We went with it. And that's how you assign your hits, is based on the target priority. So now we're going to talk about the first challenge I had with this rule system that required me to really dive into the rules and try to figure out a solution to this. So in the zombie phase, this is when you generate your zombies, and this is their profiles right here, very generic profiles. You have an Abomination, which has speed 1, which is the target priority. They have strength and hit points, so this represents two things: the zombie's strength and how many points of damage they can take. And then you have special rules, which only the runners have some special rules. And then it goes to fatties, walkers, and runners. So the way this game works is weapons have a damage output. It's listed on the profiles right here. And the encounter that you are fighting, your weapon, in order to do damage to that zombie, has to meet or beat the strength value of the zombie. So if I have a axe that does damage 2, I can pretty much I can use that against runners, walkers, and fatties. If I hit them with them, it's going to cause a point of damage. Abominations have strength 3 and 3 hit points. None of the weapons listed in the core rulebook, even the rifles and shotguns, all have damage 2. Nothing has damage 3. And that caused me a little bit of confusion. Even going through the field guide, nothing had damage 3. Everything was damage 2 or less. And it took some time. I was like, well, how in the heck am I supposed to take on an abomination? When you get into roll-ins for the number of zombies that come in, there's a chart and you can get abominations. But how am I supposed to fight them if I can't do any damage to them? And that is where the quality rating of your dice come into play. So when you roll your dice and you get 1 Molotov cocktail, that is an ordinary success. And you succeeded, you would do your damage as normal. But in order to increase that, your damage output, this is a GM rule. So this is something the GM's going to have to allow in the game. And this is the only way I can come up with having a way of attacking abominations with strength 3, is you're going to have to get a success of either 2 Molotov cocktails or more to create a better success, a superior success, or an outstanding success, and then allowing that weapon to maybe be a better shot to cause that damage. Otherwise, I could not figure out a way of creating a damage that could beat a strength 3, because nothing in here allows for that. I'm not seeing any kind of special rules or anything, and I haven't been able to find it. So this is the first thing I had to modify in this game just so I could play it, so I could come up with some way of taking out the big bad creatures. Now, you're not going to encounter a bunch of abominations, and you could run from them because they are slower moving creatures, so you could get out of their way. But it's Zombicide. The whole idea is to take out the big bad Donald Duck abomination. So why not do that? So if you're going to play this is something you want to pay a lot of attention to. And this is how I get into my solo games, is I start really reading the rules and just going through scenarios in my head, kind of doing some mock combats, things like that. And that's kind of what I came up with for that. So we move on. This is just getting more into how you do damage. You have major injuries for your PCs, everything like that. Your gear, so this is all your weapons, all your traditional weapons that you would expect to see in any type of zombie movie, except for if you're like Shaun of the Dead, there's no records, sorry. So and then you get into all your skills, breaks down all your skills and how skills are generated. Then we get into some real Game Master advice, special actions. So this is giving you just more stuff to add to your games. They got stuff called prolonged actions in this game. So typically actions in an RPG, it's like something you do for a turn. But you may have a situation in here, like maybe you found a new place and you need to get it all secured and set up so that you can make it like a safe place for you to hang out. And that might take a series of turns. It's a prolonged action, and that is all done by each turn rolling dice and getting a certain number of successes. Maybe this is one of those things where it's going to take 5 successes or 6 successes to create. And you can just do that by spending turns, and maybe random encounters are happening in the time, or maybe there's some complications, but you're collecting your successes to complete a bigger task. And it's a good concept. It fits this game quite nicely. So I like it. We got some searching roles, which that is what Zombicide is all about, is searching, looking around for new equipment. You got some charts, you got some tables. Making camp. Here they use a term called threat level. So wherever you're playing at, the area you're playing at, you're going to give it a threat level. How likely is it that there's zombies there? So if you're out in the woods, probably going to be a low threat level because you're out in the woods. Yeah, there's zombies out in the woods, but it's not a high area of population, so there's probably less. But if you're in New York City, it's probably going to be threat level 4 because there's probably quite a few people in New York City last time I heard, and there's going to be a lot more threats there. So that's what the threat level is. It's based on the area. Just going through more troubles for your players, giving you all the information to really create that cinematic game that you're looking for. Drowning, explosion, all the fun stuff. They do use radiation if you choose to use it. It gives you a chart for tracking radiation. These are things that are optional to your game. You don't have to add them in. Then we break off to the Zombipedia. This just gives you more information about your zombies so that you can try to scare your players better. So just some fun stuff here. Then this gives you the rules for creating hordes of zombies. This is like how you would create your big zombies. Zombies don't walk alone, and it kind of explains all that too. They kind of go in packs. And then when we talked about the threat level, that is what you're going to use to create your zombie horde, because you're going to roll a d6, add the threat level, and that will give you the number of zombies that you're going to encounter. This gives you all that information. For solo play, I'm probably going to end up modifying this a little bit depending on how many characters I'm going to run. I'm hoping to maybe run more than one character because I'm almost approaching this more as a board game RPG. I'm not going to be doing a lot of character interaction. I'm not going to be doing a lot of dialogue. And we're going to go out. We're going to be living in Disneyland. And we're going to go looking for stuff at Disneyland and killing zombies. So I'm approaching it that way. But I don't know how many PCs I'm going to be running. So we'll work on that. We'll have to see how that plays. I'll do some test playing to see how that works, but just talks about that. But then it also does horde waves. So if you don't kill off the horde in the first go about, additional zombies can come up, and this gives you the rules for that. It actually works pretty cool, so I like it. And then we get into kind of unique zombies. Some of the big baddies from the different game systems that they've put out, like the prison and different places like that. So they give you all that kind of stuff that you can add to your game, and then you get your furry little creatures that you can use in zombies. So it just gives you more things to add to the game. Then we get into the NPCs. This is just giving you an option to add some characters. I might just create a party of nothing but NPCs and maybe create some sort of an NPC generator or AI system, but have the NPCs just go out, and I'm just going to play it as the GM, kind of change my role, run it as the GM, not as a PC. So yes, we just continue on with more stuff about NPCs, NPC groups, things that, people you can find along the way, and it gives you some charts to roll on based on the size and if they're friendly or not. The mission phase, this is basically kind of setting up your game. What kind of a mission are you going to go out on? What are you trying to do? You got a chart to roll on, the experience you're going to reward, and just kind of breaking down how to create your game, your mission, and going out there and doing it. But the shelter phase, this is actually a really important part of this game. You need your safe space. Where are you going to live in a zombie apocalypse? I'm going to be at Disneyland. So if you're looking at Disneyland, where do I want to be? I want to be on this island right here so I can be safe from the zombies living in Disneyland. And I'm just going to have a lot of fun with that because I got a couple different ways to get into the main park. by boats or by crossing this, I only have one place to secure. So this is going to become my shelter. And this talks about how to set up your shelter, how to create your safe space, checking your supplies. This is where you can go to recover. This is going to be your main hub, and it can be invaded, and goes over all those rules for invading the shelter and giving you all your stuff. But you're going to name it. You're going to have some fun with it. This is where you put your really cool stuff. So it is Zombicide. And nothing saying you can't have a cache of weapons in your space. But you always got to go out and find more weapons because you need more ammo, you need more stuff, you need more supplies. You're constantly consuming those supplies. So you just have a safe place. You can only carry so much with you when you go out on your missions. So that's how that works. And then you just get into the world of Zombicide. But this is where I kind of got the idea for running my game at Disneyland. Outside of Zombieland, which is a really cool movie to watch if you're looking for some comedy stuff. This does actually have a portion that you can go through for an amusement park, and they call it the Fun Zone. And this consists of like stadiums and amusement parks, and just some of the different things to consider. These aren't laid out adventures, these are just adventure sites. So if you wanted to put your PCs in the Fun Zone, this just gives you information to help you generate that site. For theme parks, it really broke down why theme parks are a great place to go during the zombie apocalypse, because zombies have a hard time with barricades and chains and stairs and gates. And once you're at a particular spot, it's really easy to secure it, shut the doors and things like that, clear the building, you're good to go. And that's kind of what it sets up here. They actually mention that a theme park is one of the most dangerous places to be and safest places to be. So that's what all this is about. It's just all the different adventure sites that you can go through, and gives you just a lot of information to pull from to set up your encounters and set up your location, giving you some maps and different things that you can run into throughout your game. And I just think it's a lot of fun. And that is pretty much what ends this book, is just the rest of the different locations. There is a character sheet blank in the back, so if you truly want to create your own character, you can do it all yourself. It's not that hard. And then this is the shelter sheet that you would use for keeping track of everything, all your assets, any rumors you're keeping track of, all the different access points to your location and how they're secured and how much damage they've taken, and then who's there. Simple stuff. And then a good index to keep you on track. So that's kind of where I am at with Zombicide Chronicles. I have my adventure location all done up, so I know where I'm going to be, and it's gridded out so I can create some sort of movement, because there's really no movement rules in this game. You just kind of go from place to place to place, and you just have encounters. Like if you're going from Frontierland to New Orleans Square, you're just going to roll for what's going to be encountered along the way, and then you're there. You deal with the encounter and you go there. It's not a long drawn out like shift type movement where you're breaking everything down into 6-hour blocks or anything like that. It's pretty straightforward. The one thing I think that's missing from this game is some sort of pressure put on the PCs. No kind of time clock or anything. That's why in the stories from the outbreak they introduced that time clock, and I'm going to see about incorporating that, because maybe I need to get from one part of Disneyland to the other part, and maybe I'm only going to have 15 minutes to do it or 30 minutes to do it. And if I don't make it, maybe I get hit with a horde of zombies. I don't know yet. We'll figure all that out, but that's how I'm getting started. I got my rules. I got some supplemental material. I've got kind of an adventure site that I wanted to go to. Anyways, thanks for watching and have a great day.